My name is John Rice. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, there's one thing I really want to say, which is thank you to our hosts, SV Insight. This is a wonderful conference. We've met so many extraordinary people here already. Had no idea how high the caliber of people would be, and have been really pleasantly amazed and surprised. So I would like to say thank you to SV Insight and give them a round of applause. Thank you. I promised these guys I was going to try and make this fun, informal, and educational. But we're going to start by getting you guys involved. That was my plan, get you guys to give us your thoughts. So we're going to play a game. The game is called Bully and the Bear. All right? I'm going to make a series of statements, and I'm going to ask the panelists whether they are a bull or a bear. All right? And then you guys get to have your say. So I'm going to say, if you think that what I say has a better than 50% chance of happening, you're a bull. Less than 50% chance, you're a bear. Okay? And then you guys, after they've given us the answer, you're going to be either bully or bear, 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 bear. All right? So can we practice? Bully or bear, 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 bear. And then,
Are you sure that's a bear?
I don't know. It sounds like a bear. I imagine bears to be really quiet. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Okay. We'll start this way. We're going to start with Lake Dye.
Oh,
all right. And we're going to get these guys to introduce themselves properly in a second. But I want to get started with some fun. I know we've had lunch and everyone's probably tired. So Lake, I'm going to ask you: are you a bull or a bear on an ETF for Bitcoin in 2019?
Bear.
You guys, bully or bear? All right, so let's hear the bullies first. Bully? Let's hear the bears. Oh, a lot of bears out there. All right. Peter Taylor of Deloitte, we're going to ask you, are we going to see $250 million invested in security tokens in 2019? Bull or a bear?
Well, that's not very much money.
I'll probably go with where the market's at right now and say bear.
Bear. All right, so all those who are bullies, as loud as you can. Bully? All of those who are bears? Bear, 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 bear.
I feel good about my decision.
All right. There's a couple of bears.
Audit.
Okay. Brett Noyes of Unbank, we're going to ask you, is there going to be a platform with a DApp, any platform with a DApp that has 100,000 daily average users by the end of 2019?
Oh, I'm so bullish on these other things. Bear on this one.
Bear! Oh my gosh, these bears are winning out big time. Okay, who's bully? Oh, about 4 of you. Bears? Bear, bear, bear. Oh, the bears are winning. All right, and finally, I'm going to give you the fun one. All right, Riddhiman Das of Ant Financial, I'm going to ask you, will XRP have a higher market capitalization than Bitcoin by the end of 2019?
No, totally bearish.
Bear. Awesome. Okay, cool. So who thinks XRP will have a higher market capitalization than Bitcoin? No one. How about the bears?
You just got laughs.
Go on, give me a real bear. Come on. All right, thank you guys. That's awesome. Give yourselves a round of applause. Appreciate it. All right, we're going to get down to the serious business now. I'm going to introduce, or let the panelists introduce themselves. Lake, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Oh, sure. So I'm partner of LDV Partners, a VC firm based in Palo Alto. Though we make early stage investment in AI, robotics, bioscience, new material, and new media. So blockchain is the area that we've been pay really close attention to. The other role is I'm adjunct professor at Carnegie Mellon University. I teach master programs at College of Engineering. My courses, I have 3 courses. AI and blockchain are the 2 courses that of my favorite. The other one is product management. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Peter?
My name is Peter Taylor. I'm a senior manager at Deloitte. For the past few years, I've been working on internal projects for blockchain, primarily focus on audit and assurance, but I also work on external projects with groups like the MIT Media Lab's Digital Currency Initiative.
Brett Noyes, Managing Director of Unbank Ventures. We're an early stage financial technology incubator program located here. We've worked with 33 companies through our 4 cohorts, and our last cohort was all blockchain focused.
Riddhiman Das. I focus on technology investments at Ant Financial. Ant Financial's major product is Alipay in payments, and as well as several other solutions. The focus of my investments is fivefold in 5 key areas called BASIC: blockchain, AI, security, IoT, and computing. Although I spend probably 60% of my time on blockchain.
Okay,
And
cool.
Can I just say that I am not a venture capitalist, but I have audited VC funds, so
You
maybe
know
that's
what,
why I'm here.
You know all this insights.
All right, so we're gonna kick off a discussion of investment trends for 2019, potential killer apps in the blockchain space. I'm going to start with a kind of high-level question about enforcement versus regulation. Do you guys think we're going to see more enforcement of existing laws, or do you think we're going to see innovation in regulation from the U.S. government? Let's keep this specifically to the U.S. for now. Who wants to talk to that first? Peter.
So definitely enforcement. The SEC is going to continue what they've been doing, which is trying to focus on bad actors. There's a lot of companies out there over the last few years, ICOs that occurred that maybe they should have, followed the SEC rules, but there was a certain cutoff point, and so there's a lot of backlog really for the SEC to focus on, and so really they're doing the right thing, which is focusing on the bad actors. They're going after the frauds, they're going after the folks that are doing the wrong thing, and they're encouraging other companies, whether they're thinking of doing ICO or they've already done one, to come to them, talk to them. The SEC really wants open dialogue, but they really are going to just go for the bad actors. In terms of regulation, there's there's a bill that's been introduced or about to be introduced around like defining what an ICO is, and that's a really good step in the right direction. It's probably got a long ways to go, but it's definitely encouraging that the lawmakers are trying to take this seriously. So whether that's going to happen in 2019, I think that's unlikely, but it's definitely going in the right direction.
Okay, and what about it on a state level? Do you, I mean, we've obviously seen blockchain bills introduced in Wyoming, we've seen that in Colorado. Do you think that some of the securities bills that are being introduced at the state level will succeed? And if they do, how will they change the landscape? And why don't I throw that over to Brett?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they'll succeed or not, but it seems like a kind of a competitive advantage potentially to a state that wants to bring in new business. So I was approached last week by a group out of Vermont that wants to make that kind of the next Wyoming. Their kind of pitches that it's not Wyoming, so it's like people might want to actually move there or be near there. So so I mean, I think in the short term, it's a good opportunity for somebody who sees the economic opportunity. Obviously, 2017 we saw things get out of control, so you got to be smart and think it through, and make sure that it's regulated and what is a security and not a security. It's very important that they think those things through deeply. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know if I'm actually answering your question, but that's what I'm seeing, and I think that's where the opportunity is at the legislation level, or the economic development level for states that want to get ahead of everybody.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, in terms of investment trends, everybody's talking about security token offerings, so I figured let's get that out of the way at the beginning of this conversation, because I kind of get the feeling we're going to be returning to that subject repeatedly as we talk about killer apps as well. Why not over to you, Das? Talk a little bit about security token offerings. What do you see do you see it as a real trend for 2019? Who's going to buy them?
Sure. So I'm obviously I'm really bullish on the blockchain and the app space and everything that technologically is feasible now with software being owned by communities instead of companies and all of that. I also think ICOs were a temporary cancer that was in the community, and it lost a lot of trust from the general public that wanted to come on board. So security token offerings, if they're properly regulated, can bring back some of that trust if it truly is a security around the world. One of the things we've seen, for example, in China is almost a total ban on ICOs and any kind of token offerings to the public. If security token offerings are done in a way that brings about trust and is embracing of regulation, I think it has the potential to become, a major trend in 2019.
Aren't the STOs just kind of how things always were, but now it's on the blockchain or there's a token associated with it? I mean, isn't it kind of how STOs should have predated ICOs, and maybe ICOs never should have existed? I don't know. It just seems like it's come full circle, more so than like,
right.
like what's it going to be like? It's like you're still going to need accredited investors. I don't know. You're going to have the same challenges of raising capital. We saw the good and the bad of not having challenges of raising capital, so it feels like, maybe we're just getting back to business as usual.
Sure, and I think that so we see a lot of applications, let's say, for example, tokenizing X or Y or some new thing, right? And it's encouraging that those things are happening because they enable financial products, they enable all this liquidity to come into underutilized assets. But oftentimes I'm left wondering why that's a good use case for the blockchain, right? What are we unlocking with a blockchain as it comes to tokenizing real estate that is not possible to be done in a centralized system by the state, for example, right? And I haven't seen a clear, concise argument for that yet. Now, stablecoins are something that's interesting. I think that's something we'll see a lot more adoption of in 2019. For example, today, if I wanted to use a DApp, and the currency for that DApp is Y token that is volatile, right? And that is a major impediment to its adoption, right? If my grandma has to buy today $10 worth of token to post a like on Facebook, and then tomorrow it's $30, she's just be like, what's happening, right? Why am I going to use this?
Well, you got a happy grandmother right there.
Right. And so if it's pegged to some kind of real world currency, I think that has the opportunity to kickstart adoption of DApps, of real DApps. For example, there is this ongoing debate in the venture capital cycle as to what comes first. Is it the protocol that comes first, or is it the applications that come first? Mm-hmm. I think we're at a point where the protocols are there to support the early stages of the apps. And then the next stage of the protocol development will actually happen from the first apps that come in. Mm-hmm. For example, to draw an analogy to email again, we have the equivalent of POP, Post Office Protocol, in the DApp world. IMAP emerged once the first few email clients came in, and Pine and all that, and it was like, great, server-side storage of folders and all of this is a neat idea. Let's do that, right? So I think we'll start to see the POP-level innovation, drawing an analogy to email, emerge in 2019.
Okay, cool. So, like, I asked who will invest in a security token offering. I mean, Brett, you mentioned, isn't this the way they've always been done? But we're talking to a crypto and blockchain audience. Who, if these things are actually going to be out there as a substitute in some ways for investing in early stage companies via an ICO, who's interested in security token offerings and why?
Well, I think when we're looking at the investment community, and there are typically two different types. One is the one that we kind of referring to traditional VCs, so traditional institutions, who are very familiar with the equity investment structure. Mm-hmm. And others who are, I would say, have the DNA of crypto or even blockchain, they're more familiar with more comfortable with it. So I would say probably you're going to see a lot of investment coming from the financial institutions or investors who have that background and more comfortable with it. So the other things to look at is not just the VC or kind of traditional angel investors, early stage VCs, but now we also see family offices. We see corporate investors are interested in as well. So I would say, even though it's a bear market, you're going to see more diversified kind of personas of different investors. Even though we view today, I would say 2019, everyone said it's a bear market from all the questions that you have asked. Right. But I think my personal opinion is that the best investment opportunity typically happens maybe a year or a little longer right after the downturn. Because it happens if you look into 1999 internet bubble and then you look into 2008, 2009 recession, all the best return of investment actually happened a little bit after I would say the bottom of the market. The reason is the one is after the bubble, there actually is really good opportunity for the market, for the investor, and also for the entrepreneur to be more rational. So we will see, I'm expecting to see the entrepreneurs a lot more down to earth, more rational, and a lot of business not only purely talk about technology structure, but also looking into whether that's an application can solve a real problem. And we also see that a lot of entrepreneurs with industry experience start to move into this industry as well. So we're going to see more and more solid solutions and more solid entrepreneurs, and the valuation will become more reasonable, attractive for investor as well. So I think after 2019, you probably see, I personally think that actually going to be good opportunity for investment for a lot of investors who have appetite.
Okay, and Peter, I'm going to put you on the spot and say, what's your response to that? Do you agree that this represents a good opportunity for investors, or is this just going to keep going away?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to break it into maybe two different areas. One would be, are we talking about investing in digital assets, or are we talking about investing in the companies themselves? And I think that investing in the companies themselves, basically investing in the technology. If I were to give out investment advice, which I'm not. I wanted to put him on the spot with this because we discussed this beforehand. I said, you're going to give investment advice from the stage. but I'm a proponent of the technology. And so, what we're seeing is that it's not so much like, the startups aren't, I'm not going to say the startups aren't the future, but where we see the future going is more with the permission blockchains, consortia, industries, traditional companies adopting the technology, basically the existing networks that already have a traditional consortia in place. When they start adopting this technology, that's where, or as they start adopting the technology, that's where you're really going to see the growth.
So, Riddhiman, come back to you, Riddhiman, for a second. In terms of mergers and acquisitions, which is one of your specialties, do you see an investing trend for 2019 being the opportunity for larger firms to pick up some of the startups that came out of the ICO era?
Sure. So going back to, let's say, there are two ways to view blockchain. One is it enables new money and crypto, and second is sort of what we're doing and Tencent's doing, and it enables transparency and auditability and all these other decentralized things. So on that, and I do think that we'll see a lot of these enabling technologies that enable more security, privacy, scalability, interoperability between chains, them being bought out by some of the bigger players because it's so strategic to their own offerings. For example, we've seen blockchain as a service emerge from Amazon, Microsoft, IBM. We've got an offering, I'm sure Tencent does or is thinking about it. So as those developer tools become accessible to build the next D-app, I think consolidation's looking likely.
Do you agree?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess, just in general, I had a conversation with an M&A firm yesterday and saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing coming across my desk. All these companies that we helped raise, well over $500 million last summer are now coming to me asking, oh, hey, we're doing like down round, they're, whatever they want to call them, but now we need an equity round.
Right.
And so I'm talking to other people in the ecosystem saying, is there opportunity for larger players to buy these companies, to put cash into them? Is there opportunity for VCs to restructure them? It's like fundamentally, I feel like a lot of these companies were built incorrectly, right? They were basically raised the equivalent of Series D money from day one and then went on like a publicly exchanged, like went on the stock market, right? So it's those pressures, and we haven't seen these companies necessarily do well with that money, plus the bear market. So I mean, a lot of these companies have been crushed, right? It looks, from the outside, it looks like these are like $30 to $100 million companies, but in reality, they have like less than $3 million, $1 million still left in the bank. So, but great teams, built some interesting tech. It's early, so I think there's a massive acquisition opportunity for anybody that's just interested in picking up some good talent, some good tech. So I feel like everything's on sale right now. So yeah, if you got money, like I'd be really thinking about what do you want to buy. So what was too expensive a year ago and what's on sale now, right? So
Right. So we talked. You alluded to stablecoins briefly. Let me go to you, Lake, and say stablecoins would represent both an application of the technology as well as an investing opportunity. Would you agree?
Yes,
Okay.
I would agree. Yeah.
Good. Well, that was that taken care of. Glad. Talk a little more about that.
Well, so stablecoins as an investment opportunity, I would say, well, it depends. You talk about token.
Yeah.
stable tokens,
Yeah.
right?
So TrueUSD or something like that.
Well, again, it depends on who are the investors.
Right.
So your question referring to individual investors in the market, or
Thinking more along the lines of the institutionals, are they more likely to move into this space if they feel that they have the stability of a coin that retains value, as Riddhiman was saying earlier?
Yeah. So I can speak on in terms of early stage financial institutions, but for late stage or the ones who can actually do equity, the trading, I cannot really speak too much about it.
Okay.
For early stage VCs, I think at least for our institution, our fund, we're still looking to more of an investment into a company, and then whether there's the opportunity to generate returns from token is not the primary focus of what we're looking into.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, if I may, I'm really excited about stablecoins, if you can't tell already, right? I think stablecoins are timely in that they represent a huge opportunity for the unbanked and the underbanked all over the world, right? So if you think about the bottom 80% of the world that does not have access to a reliable financial institution or a bank that's not in their village because it's 200 miles away from the nearest banking center, there is a lot of people still stashing money away inside their mattress and not really investing it. So the ability to bring some of those people into the fold of financial services through a $30 mobile phone or a $30 smartphone that they're carrying in their pocket is an enormous opportunity, right? And so that stable coin that's pegged to their local currency and now enabling them to invest in securitize ETFs or whatever just from that phone is a tremendous opportunity.
So what are some stable coins that you see are exciting? Because I heard this the other day I hear everyone saying this, and then I'm like, so what's got you excited? Who's good?
Sure, I don't know if...
Can I say the ones that have an attestation report that goes along with them that
Can
says...
you define what that word means?
Yeah, I think, let's hear from you.
Assurance that the money that's in the bank is actually tied to that stable coin, that there is an obligation there, that somebody else doesn't have claim on.
I agree.
it.
So I don't know if I want to endorse a particular stablecoin. I think there's because it
Sure, if it has these check boxes,
sure,
it'd be good.
but yes.
So I got to go back and re-look up the word you just told me.
I think stablecoins today could use maybe some of the same decentralized oracles that make up Augur, right? So today we say, in this bank in the Cayman we trust because of this for the stablecoin. That's not a great trust model. It's a start because we've digitized that dollar. If there was a way to bring a consortium of different financial institutions with aligned incentives to participate and attest to the existence of whatever the reserve was, I think that's a better way. I don't think we have that yet.
Yeah. So actually, I want to ask a question, if I may.
Please.
So any kind of a value of we call it currency or whatever, coin or token, is that it's really supported by circulation and also
I agree.
The perceived value, right? So you mentioned that we cannot endorse any kind of stable token right here, but what do you think will have a possibilities to support that kind of circulation perceived value?
So a currency is not money. I agree with that. And what I think will happen is two different approaches coming out of the West and the East. I wouldn't be surprised if the East takes an approach where stablecoins and currencies on some kind of ledger is the job of the central bank. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I think private entities would introduce that in the Western world. I can see Southeast Asia, East Asia, South Asia, even the Middle East, where their central banks are looking and thinking about that enough to want to introduce that in 2019 or in the near future. I think it's the Marshall Islands that has already approved their fiat currency to be their national currency to be issued on a blockchain, right? So that is a digital dollar that is backed by a sovereign nation. I think those trends are really encouraging. If we wanted to have a private entity or a community, a blockchain DAO or DAC of some sort that's organizing that, I would go back to how do we solve the Oracle problem? How do we not trust one financial institution or one banker saying, yes, we've got the money?
Okay, so let's move on to onto the killer app. All right, this is kind of an interesting one because it's very predictive, and one thing that I've noticed about technology is it tends to be driven by kids, right? I mean, we can talk down from a kind of financial perspective as much as we want, but that's still only kind of the people who have the money to invest, right? Widespread adoption of any technology that I see that has the potential to change the world is often driven upwards. I mean, even Queen comebacks and ABBA comebacks are driven by kids. It's teenagers who go and see these movies that these old bands that people like me remember are now featured in. So what do we see as something that actually drives the adoption, not just of blockchain, but also cryptocurrency? Why don't we start with you, Lei?
I'm sitting on the wrong seat. I was the first one to answer the question.
Do I keep giving you the wrong questions?
No. Well, to answer the question, we have to have a kid inside. But you asked actually a really good question. I think to drive early adoption, the adoption and also organic growth and also consistent engagement, I would, if there's one thing I have to choose, I would say gaming. Mm-hmm. Yeah, gaming traditionally is something that is playful, it's highly engaged. There are credits or points already existing in the system, right? So the players know they need to generate the points, and they can trade the points. The points can be used for other things, even trading among different players. So that's why I think gaming is actually one of the natural categories that fit for this. Yeah.
Anyone disagree with that?
I actually agree with that, but if the question were to come to me, I was going to actually pivot and say that we might actually see adoption at the federal government level. So one interesting thing is that when you start looking at committee hearings in Congress, you get a sense that the government really does not like cryptocurrency tokens, ICOs. However, they love blockchain technology. They really want to understand how Walmart was able to track fruits and vegetables, from the point of sale all the way back to the original farm. And so I think the decision makers and government are really trying to figure out where they can make the investments to get the most bang for the buck and to showcase or not showcase the use of blockchain. And so as that happens, I think you're going to see a lot of adoption flowing from that by organizations led by maybe one or two or more government use cases.
Okay, and I think this is worth both of you answering too. So Brett, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in general, so my focus is generally B2B type of unsexy behind the scenes stuff. So I feel like this question is like, oh, what's next, CryptoKitties? I don't know. Whatever it is, I probably won't be involved in it. But in general, like at a high level, it's like, there's just so many UI and usability issues that kind of need to be solved before the next killer app comes along. So if you can just make it simple, easy to use, and that no one knows that it's blockchain is or a cryptocurrency is behind it, I think that's the components of a killer app. Mm-hmm. Ones in my portfolio that I like or think are interesting. It's a company out of Seattle called Y-Green, and working on bringing an app is one aspect of it. Basically, the ability to take, when you plug in your Tesla and or other thing, the ability to put energy, onto the grid and make money back and forth. It's great for energy. It's great for the consumer. We see it's a win-win. And it's I don't know. We originally came into it with the guy pitching us, turning energy into a currency, and I said, "You sound crazy. Let's see if we can what we can do with this." So I think there's just many different applications, right? So some of them will be less sexy, others will be, and I don't know. They just kind of come through cycles. So I have no idea to poorly answer your question. I have no idea.
Well, I don't think anyone really knows, but what about you?
So if I think about what would a teenager get excited about as it relates to what we're talking about here, I think you're right. Games are a big opportunity. Interchangeable assets between games. If I level up in one game, how do I now transfer that to another game, potentially not by the same vendor? And bringing about liquidity to that is interesting and exciting. I also think social's a massive untapped opportunity right now. If you think about it, Facebook or Twitter and all of these, the meat of a lot of what make them what they are is the newsfeed, right? So I think what these technologies enable you to do is not only just own the data, which I think is becoming more and more of a public concern given the recent developments in social, as well as the ability to use any timeline or any newsfeed that you want depending on what you're using it for, right? So I can see that emerging in the world of social that a teenager would actually use.
So do you think it will be a version of a Web 2.0 application, or do you think it will be something completely new? I mean, you work with artificial intelligence. Do you think there's an application there that could be strong enough in 2019 and wide enough in 2019 to have a real impact on the industry?
Yeah, there's always possibilities. So I think that we're going to go back to social media as an example. Is that the amount of data that is available today that we have access to, the amount of understanding, the computing power, the insight we're getting, the data, that should allow us to do a lot of different things. But if you look at how information are shared and managed and stored and distributed, I think blockchain technology can play a really critical role. So I wouldn't necessarily say that today we here only talk about blockchain, but we see a lot of collaboration of the technology in conjunction working with other things, AI for example, but also you're looking to blockchain applications in bioscience, into applications in logistics. There are a lot of innovations in individual verticals. So I would say, even though we're looking at this as a bear market, but we see a lot of innovation happens in many different verticals. So for that, I'm bullish.
And speaking of verticals, is there a vertical that sort of stands to be disrupted more by blockchain over the coming year, and in which maybe the incumbents are more vulnerable because of blockchain?
Yes. I have one example, actually.
Please. And let's get out of that one as fast as we possibly can, everybody. Just sell everything.
Well, this is a little different because a lot of times we're talking about technology, we're talking about for-profit. I have a passion for nonprofit initiatives. So in nonprofit organizations, one of the challenges that we have is really the money management. So we know that everyone's making donation, right? So every year you're making donation to different organizations, to Africa, to education, to schools in South America, all different places, but you never know where the money is going and who actually use it. And probably a lot of people have no exposure to nonprofit organization. We'll be surprised that more than half the money that you donated may actually being used through the institutions, but like layers and layers. So there's so much bureaucracy and inefficiency. So when I proposed, I was in London in October and was talking to different nonprofit organizations and the government about applying blockchain technology in just the donation management. The biggest fear that I heard was that will expose how much money has been used for non-donation uses, right? So that will reduce the incentive of the donor. But my perspective is that it's necessary, just because, this is the first time we see see the transparency, we can manage more efficiently. Maybe used to be 50% is necessary, but maybe today there could be 20% or 30%. But if you don't know and you can't solve the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a left field question, and I'll get everybody to kind of just do 30 seconds on this one. Is anybody going to continue to invest in a blockchain technology that is not provably scalable? Anyone want to take that? Brett, you start.
Maybe not on purpose, right? Not if you like really figure it out. But I mean, in general, like I think every time that we hit a wall with these things, like fundamentally, that's an opportunity to build the next layer, like the next 3.0 version of it. So yeah, people, I mean, are good. Yes, I mean they're going to have to, right? Or this all dies, right? If we just decide, oh, great, Ethereum has these challenges, and this protocol has this challenge, and this one has this one. Well, why don't we just pack it up and go home then, right? Like, what are we doing here today? So yeah, and like I think it's VC's job in general to take these early calculated bets and portfolio theory to kind of make it. You got to make some good bets, and you got to have some winners, obviously. But I don't know. I think fundamentally it's our job to push these things forward.
I'll have a slightly technical perspective on this. I think there's potentially room in the market for, it depends on how you define scalability first, but there's probably room in the market for something that is inherently fast, but once you go a level deeper, is potentially slower. And what I mean by that is, let's say zero knowledge proofs, right? We have the ability to publish a proof, and then the verifier knows, would just verify and trust that the zero knowledge proof was correctly done. But if you wanted to go a level deeper and say, okay, I really want to, instead of just verifying, I want to go dig a level deeper, see the source and see how this was arrived at, and that's going to take me longer. I can see a balance there between the two.
So scalability is extremely important for widespread adoption, but if you're thinking about all these different protocols, tokens, and use cases, scalability may not be that important for every single one, because it's not like you're going to be you're not going to have a digital wallet with like a couple hundred different tokens that you use. Not everybody's going to need all these tokens, and so there are going to be very particular applications, and so the importance of continuing to experiment, I think, is going to be key. And maybe there is very particular use cases where a certain protocol works versus another, but continuing to experiment is going to be important.
I think use cases is an important part, because sometimes it's when we look at there's for payments, sometimes, or a lot of times, or in general, blockchain doesn't solve the problems that we want it to, or it's not quick enough. But when you look at like doing mortgages or something that doesn't move at the speed and the scale, like it's much, much better today than any other opportunity. So it's like, it's invest in it today. Doesn't mean like you were probably, if you're successful, you're going to bump up against those barriers, and then we got to solve that problem.
Okay. Yeah, any system where there's a large number of parties that interact with each other, and they use a common data set, there's no better technology than blockchain. So that's the solution.
So we've got like 1 minute left, so this is going to be kind of a yes or no answer from you guys, basically, but is blockchain moving to become an enterprise technology while cryptocurrency becomes a consumer-facing application?
You have to go first.
Yeah. I'm
Sorry,
thinking.
Lake.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I'd agree. It again depends. I think there's a use case for both in both worlds, but if the trend's looking that way.
I see that as a big trend for 2019 too. Ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you'll join me in thanking our guests. They've done a wonderful job, and I hope you're entertained and educated. Congratulations. Good job. Thank you.